Hello, and thank you for joining the owner's table. This is where you will learn the framework to scale profitably and work less at the same time. We're all about building freedom at Business Wealth Advisory, and we are going to dive in, share the framework that has worked with hundreds of business owners just like you who are building something amazing, but not feeling like you have true freedom. So let's dive in. So during this short-ish presentation, I'm going to give you a little introduction about myself and why I am passionate about bringing freedom to the lives of busy entrepreneurs, and also talk through the framework that creates that freedom. We're going to talk through the six areas that move the needle to bring you that time and financial freedom. And there is a worksheet that goes along with this so that you can also follow along and to start identifying the top three priorities and those next steps to be able to move the needle in your own business. For being part of this conversation, you will also receive a business assessment, a health and value assessment of your business that I will share a little bit more details at the end, as well as a Freedom Insight Report gives you an amazing bird's eye view of exactly where to focus in your business in the next 6 months. And then also a one-on-one strategy call with me just for being here today. A little bit about me. I am your business partner, basically. Am not a coach, not really a consultant. I am a strategic partner for successful entrepreneurs. And I have been an entrepreneur for 26 years as of today, and actually almost exactly because I started my business when I was pregnant with my firstborn. So and her birthday is in May. And I did that for many reasons, like some of you who I was in corporate America. I loved my job. I was in finance and HR, but I wanted to have that flexibility as I was starting this new family. I wanted to be there for my children as as they were babies and then grew up. I ended up having a son a few years into the business, but that's why I started my business in the first place. The short version of my story is that I was successful. It worked for a few years. I had that flexibility, but as revenue grew, obviously the team grew, and then I was working so many hours. I was missing bedtimes. I was not home on the weekends. And it was this idea of success, but I was winning awards. I was seeing the revenue growth. I was seeing the profits increase, but I was missing out on the exact things that I literally started the business for in the first place. So I did what a lot of owners do is say, well, I obviously need to go back to corporate America. And I uh, had my business for sale. Thankfully, the buyers backed out the night before. So lesson learned there is the deal is never done until the money's actually in your bank. But it was a great moment. Even though I was already mentally checked out, I thought I'm done with this business owner lifestyle because it was not providing me the time and financial freedom. And now this is like 19 years ago, because it was about 6 years into the business. So when the buyers backed out, I realized I had to figure this out. I had to build a business that would continue to grow in profits and reward me for my efforts, and as well as give me that freedom to be able to be home with my kids, to go on vacations and not have the business fall apart, to not have to unlock the door of the office, be the first one in every day. So I worked on people, processes, and planning for that. I can't say it was overnight. It took about 2 years to get everything really aligned. One of the things I did to help with that, because I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest, before that, I ended up putting my ego beside me and asked for help. And that is why now, fast forward to today, I am helping other owners do the same. Um, Long story short, my business ended up running without me. I get bored easily, so I started opening and starting and acquiring other companies. I eventually sold that first one. Again, we're going to talk about business value and enterprise value today. This is the exact reason why I was not for sale when someone came knocking and asked me to buy my business. But because I'd gone through that experience where the buyers backed out, I had already understood what due diligence looked like, what a buyer looks at in the business. So when I got an unsolicited offer, I was already positioned and the business was positioned, the financials were positioned, everything was in a beautiful package that I got top multiple in my industry at that time, even though I wasn't for sale. So when we talk about business value, the reason that you want to focus on that today is the exact reason. I've seen this with many of my clients. So that is my story. I use everything that I've learned as a advisor, a strategic advisor for other entrepreneurs for the last decades, and built a framework. What really makes us different is the framework that we do. There's plenty of business coaches out there, business advisors, but we do is completely different. Who this is for is profitable founders because we are working with the profits. This is also about building your financial freedom as well. So if you're profitable and up to about 10 million, I have some clients that are more than that. We don't really talk about revenue too much because every industry is a little bit different. So if you're a business owner who is profitable, wants time and freedom, and to have a business that runs without you and is valuable, then you are the exact person that we help. Why this matters? Well, what you gain when you flip how you're doing your business and the framework that you're scaling or growing from, what really becomes possible is, again, a business that runs without you in the room. Your personal growth, a lot of times you'll hear me talk about this a lot, that business owners have a plan over here and the life over here financially, and they're not connected. We will be working through the a financial plan that helps you reinvest in your business and invest in your own personal finances. Knowing your freedom number or freedom figure is the number that you need in financially in your life to live your ideal life and exit on your own terms. And most importantly, what most of the folks that are running a scaling profitable business, they want time back. They want time for your family, for your life, for yourself. So that is what we focus on in our framework. Before I dive in, I want you to take a look at some of these questions and be honest with yourself. What if you took a vacation for 30 days? Can you? Is your business going to still be around? Are you going to be called all the time? Now, a lot of times, owners that I'm working with, sure, they might take a vacation, but they're on their phones, they're checking an email, they're doing a Zoom call here and there. But actually, can you take a vacation for an extended period of time? We talked about that freedom figure. Like, what are we building your business for? How much does your business need to be worth? How much are you pulling out of your business now, next year, 5 years from now? That all is aligned with your personal goals. Like, depends on my life now. My children are out of the house. But when I was raising kids and driving them to every sporting event in the world, it seemed like my flexibility and my time freedom was totally different then. So ask yourself some of these questions. Again, if you sold today, if someone came knocking on your door, would you get top multiple? Or would it be more like, well, that number sounds good. I think I'll sell it. But you don't even know if you're structured correctly. You don't even know what the tax implications would be. You don't even know if that's what your business is valued. Those are the things that I want you to have in mind as we kind of go through this framework. Here is the way that most entrepreneurs live their life. Their business gets most of their energy, their time, their focus. and everything else is sort of separate. Money's over here. You might have a financial advisor, but it's a plan over here for retirement, and your business is here. Life gets whatever energy you have left. Time is whatever you have left because the business is usually your biggest asset. That is what's providing money to your family. And so they're kind of all separate. And you're juggling all of these things, trying to be fair to all parts. That's what people call success. The freedom mastery way is completely different. The very first thing that we do, and what I suggest that you do, is really identify your ideal life. That's the purple box or purple circle around here. That's really getting clear on what your freedom number is, your time, your impact. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Believe it or not, in our framework, when I'm working with clients, I literally have you write your obituary. It's not meant to be morbid, but it is meant for you to think about, what am I doing this business for in the first place? What kind of life is this business supposed to be supporting? You see, the way that it was on the previous slide, usually your family, your legacy, your time, your vacations, your children gets whatever is left over. Here, we define what all of those aspects, what does your time look like today, next year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever your time frame is, because there is seasonality, especially if you have children. They might be young, like when I first started out, and or maybe they're not. Maybe you're, from a financial standpoint, you're planning for your kids' college. Maybe you are planning for your own retirement. Maybe you want to have a house in 3 different states. Whatever that financial outlook is, we get really clear on that because then we know what the business needs to provide. Also, entrepreneurs often chase revenue just for the sake of chasing revenue. But what if you already have what you need? What if you already are set up beyond retirement? Would you still be working every day if you knew that? Question is for you to answer. So first we get really clear on what your ideal life looks like. And we put your business inside that so that it's protected, so that we always have those guardrails of, well, is this business decision aligned with my ideal life? Aligned with my impact that I want to make? Aligned with my core values? And that way, we are building the business within that universe of your ideal life. The other piece that most entrepreneurs never even think about is protection. Protection is more than just business insurance. That's talking about what happens if your number one employee gets an offer across the world and leaves your company? What happens if you or they get hit by a bus? What if something happens to someone in your family and you need to take extensive time? What about your estate plan? Is that aligned with the legacy that you want to live? Even when we talk about insurance, I can share a story about after I sold my business, a year and a half later, someone was suing the new owners, but for something that they did. I had nothing to do with it. I still, because I was listed on there from that person's attorney, I was still listed because they didn't pay any attention to the fact that I had sold the business a year and a half before that. I was in a 2.5 year lawsuit that I had to pay an attorney hundreds of thousands of dollars just to prove that I was not part of that thing that they said the new owners were doing. So I still lost hundreds of thousands of dollars just because I had canceled my business insurance after I sold. I didn't need it anymore. These are the stories of where if you didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars laying around, it could happen to you. Now that is my own personal story of an exit, but I have many stories like that of where something unexpected happens and you're not protected. Matter of fact, a client was telling me um, the other day about when before we were working together, they fell off of a ladder and was out of commission, broke hips or pelvic bone and a couple different bones in their body. Fell off a ladder doing yard work in the backyard. So this isn't even like necessarily business protection. This is like what happens to you if you fell off a ladder, broke your pelvis, and couldn't work for 6 weeks or 6 months. Right? Those are the kind of protections that we look at, as well as exit planning, the insurance, and all of those things. So that is the framework is ideal life, really getting that vision clear, and then aligning the business around that, and then protecting everything. Some real life examples. Paul and Melissa, I will do these short, but these are real examples. Paul and Melissa were very similar to me. They were, when I met them, they were going to go back into corporate America. They were both working in the same business. They were working 60 plus hours a week. Um, their kids were in high school, so they were busy with different sporting events and everything, and they wanted to travel. So they literally said, we are going to close our doors if we don't figure this out in the next couple weeks. Thankfully, they trusted me. We did not solve all of the problems in a few weeks, but what we did do is hired someone to take the work off of Paul. We hired that person in this industry. These individuals were cost about $100,000 in salary. So not a cheap employee. We hired that person because he understood that it's an investment and that employees should bring in revenue, whether they're doing it directly or allowing someone else to free up their time to bring in revenue. It's not a cost if you do it right. It is an investment. And this is exactly what we did. That employee that we hired for $100,000 was covering that salary within 6 months with the billable services that that person was providing. And that's in addition to Paul having to spend quite a bit of time training this person. So it's not like you hire someone and they are out, and out doing the things or doing whatever service that you have. But this employee also then, within 13 months, it was a little over a year, doubled that. So $200,000 in revenue, 100 of it goes to the salary. That person was bringing profit to the bottom line within just a little over a year. We did that on repeat. We hired someone to take the work off of Melissa. We knew what their financial number needed to be for retirement. We actually passed on the first offer because it wasn't aligned with their freedom figure. And they did get an offer for 7 figures about 2.5 years in of working together. So that is an exact story of like ready to burn out to successful exit that filled their financial gap and gave them all the freedom that they need. They're traveling the world. Amy, on the other hand, not exit, still working in the business. When she came to work with me, she was stuck as a solopreneur. And this is why revenue doesn't necessarily matter because or size of team because she was stuck at $300,000. She was the one doing all of the work. Obviously, in order to scale, you need to hire folks. So we started to hire strategically and we grew. She grew. I say we because I take all of my clients personally as if it's my own business. She grew from 300,000 to well over 1 million in less than 2 years of revenue. So she had the boundaries that were really defined. She has 3 little kids. They're a little bit older now, but when we started working together, so she was dropping them off at school. She was picking them up. When one was sick, she had to be home and take care of them and couldn't be on calls with clients. She works an average of 20 hours a week. These are success stories of what happens when you actually follow the framework with ideal life, realign your business around that life, and then you are protecting everything. When we talk about vision, we've kind of talked about some of this time freedom. What does your calendar look like? Does it run without you? Or does the business run without you? Or are you required to be there? So before we do any tactics, these are the 3 buckets that we talked about that we get really, really clear on before we dive into any strategies. What usually happens, and even I've had folks, well, I just need to hire people. Well, I'm sure that's true, but we still need to have that foundation. And that is where most folks, especially who have worked with coaches in the past, they just go put out fires without really having that foundation really, really clear. So, your business value, you are going to see as part of being in the owner's room right now. You are going to get an opportunity to score yourself in your business value. So that's what the part on the bottom shows, that there are areas of your business that you will be assessing to for your own business to see exactly where your gaps are, not only just in the vision, but also in the strategy and the protection as well. This is where the worksheet comes in. When we talk about vision, I want you to ask yourself, what if you know your freedom number? What is that number that you need to fund your ideal life? Most have never even defined it. Does your time freedom mean your calendar reflects your life? Do you have your workouts on there? Do you have picking up the kids after school? Do you have vacations planned in advance? Or are you just putting out fires all day? What does that look like for you? What about your personal wealth? Are you do you have a strategic plan in your business of how much you're going to reinvest, how much you're pulling out, taking home as an income so that you can invest it in you and your family's life and in your retirement? So many folks have their business as their number one pot of money for retirement. And that's a risk because, again, you could get hit by a bus. Something could happen to you. The industry could change. I've seen that as well, right? Where industry changes and now your business isn't worth as much. You're not going to sell it for if something changes in your industry and the market no longer needs your services, it's not going to be worth the same. Could be worth less than what you're even making in profit. So this is where we have to have a strategic wealth plan in order to know, how much am I taking from the business? What am I reinvesting? What is my industry doing? And then also about your legacy and impact. So you have a worksheet that you should take some notes and on each of these things that I'm going to go through here, and write down what are some action steps that you could take to get some of these aligned. You don't have to have an answer for everything, but some of these are going to hit a little bit harder than others. So, and then we'll go back and we'll score them and we'll find your top three. So that's vision, defining your ideal life. When we talk about owner dependency, this is where we really make sure that you're not the bottleneck. Because again, besides the financial components of valuing your business, if you are the person who brings in all the leads or does all the sales calls or does most of the work, your business isn't worth much, if anything. Depending on how involved you are in the operations, in the sales, in the marketing, in the doing of your business, you could be, I have seen this, I have changed companies like this that are $5, $10 million, and they're not worth a whole lot. They're even profitable and not worth a whole lot because if someone was to buy your company and everything relies on you, that is too risky. A buyer is not going to pay for you unless you're going to stay there and now you just have a job working for somebody else. So this is why we talk about business value quite a bit. Do you have we go through the D's in part of our framework. It's the either you're doing it, you're delegating it, you're deleting it, you're deferring it, meaning it's important but just not important right now, or you're designing it out, which is more like automation and or systems. So this is where we get really clear to make sure the things that are on your plate, do you need to be doing them? Should we have a plan? That delegation plan then rolls into the hiring plan, the growth plan from a people standpoint. So this is why it's foundational, why we work on owner dependency first, so that we know who we do need to hire. What positions don't we have the right people on the bus for? And we're going to talk about that too. So this is where you not being the center of everything in your business actually makes you worth more, your business worth more, and it makes you worth more. Next is sales and marketing. One of the biggest challenges that I see is founders or owners chasing revenue for the sake of revenue. So many owners benchmark themselves on revenue. Revenue is great. You need revenue to have a business, but it's profitability and business value that really matter. I have seen 20, 30, 40 $1 million revenue companies that make $50,000, $75,000. And then I've seen companies just like Amy that I was sharing that are $300,000 of revenue and bringing home 250. Which one would you rather have? Probably the one that brings home $250,000. A $20 million company, depending on the industry, should be bringing in more than a couple $100,000, right? So this is where revenue, lovely, we need it in order to have a business, but we need to focus on margins. We need to focus on profitability. So when we look at sales and marketing, we look at and make sure we are really clear on which lead sources give us the best referrals. Not just the one that gives us the most referrals, but which one is giving us the ideal referrals? Who is our ICP or ideal client profile? So a bullseye, getting really clear on who it is that we want to serve, whether it's product or services, and is so much more important, especially from a value standpoint, than just shooting at a whole target. So looking at that, looking at how many of your clients make up the majority of your revenue. You might have some great clients, but if they're 20% of your revenue, that is a huge risk because they could just call and cancel at any moment, right? In most situations. Also, your business is worth less if you have a high concentration of clients are taking up the majority of your revenue. Your best clients aren't always the greatest because, again, we look at margins. Things like your sales process. Again, this also connects back to owner dependency, like who's doing the sales, the actual closing. So there's lead generation and then there's closing of the sales. I've seen businesses where the owner is the one who knows everyone who is bringing in the referrals. That's great until something happens to you, right? So those are businesses that are built on a house of cards. One little breeze can knock out the most successful on paper businesses. These are the things that we work on. Talked about people in leadership a little bit. We have to build the business with the right people in the right seats. I can tell you I did this wrong in my first business. I was cheap and I hired individuals that I love training. I love coaching even before I knew that I would ever be an advisor. When I was just trying to build my own business, I loved helping other people. So I hired uh, barely skilled people for the tasks that I needed, and then I would teach them how to do the rest. And that made me feel great. It did not help my business. It did not help me grow. It actually stalled my growth. So we need to always be hiring people who are skilled and love the things that you need them to do and that are skilled enough, more skilled than what you need them today because we need them skilled for that growth. We need someone who can do the things that you need in your business 18 months from now. That's who you hire today. So we also want to make sure you have a recruiting plan that ties back to that reducing owner dependency. What are you taking off of your plate? What kind of positions do we need to hire? That all builds a growth plan for your business because you can't scale if you're the one who's leading everything. So again, write down some of your challenges that you have that maybe some of these resonate with you. Also, when we think about leadership, performance culture is not micromanaging. Performance culture, actually, when people know exactly what's expected of them and how it's measured, that is when teams are so productive that they know people in general, the people that you want to hire anyway want to know that they are doing a good job. If they don't know, if they just because they did the test for the day or the week or the year, if they're not getting recognition of like, I knew that I was doing exactly what I needed to do because they didn't have what their KPIs, their key performance indicators were, what made their job successful, that's really hard for someone to feel like they're doing a good job. That's when people start looking for other opportunities as well. So if you have high turnover, it might be because they don't have a clear expectation of what's expected of them. So we make sure that that is all built in because a performance culture, everyone knows exactly what their job is and exactly what is expected of them. Financials. This is part where some founders or owners don't really like because they're not numbers people, but you need to know the key numbers in your business. You decide and make decisions on data. So, again, from a value standpoint, if you ever were to get a knock on the door and an offer to buy your business, your books have to be clean. If you have personal expenses in there, that's fine, but you better be able to take them out and add them back to your profit and do an adjusted profit number because that is what your business is valued on. So if you're taking vacations that are work related, but you have them in your profit and loss statements, you need to be able to bring those, identify those and add those back. You also need to know exactly what your business truly operates on, what the margins are, both gross margin, net margin. So again, we talked about revenue is not a scorecard. You need to know your margins by client, by service line, by distribution channel, like whatever it is that your business is. That's where the real story lives. You should only be looking at about, you should be looking at your P&L monthly, but also about 5 to 7 KPIs that will tell you the real health of your business. If you don't know those, that's something that we work on in our framework. And then we talked about protecting what you've built. If there is a gap in your ideal life to where you are today, we need to find that and solve that. Again, we look at what if you sold today? What if something happened to you today? Are you set up from a saving on taxes? Like if you sold your business tomorrow, are you paying capital gains? Are you paying taxes? Do you have things set up in a trust? Are you protected from someone giving you a lawsuit? And even if you didn't do anything wrong, you could be just like the story I shared about myself, where you get wrapped up into something, even if you had nothing to do with it. So, those are the things that we look at from a protection standpoint, not just business insurance or not just life insurance. Again, if you're leaving a legacy, this is also where we would want to make sure that your estate is set up. We do not do your estate planning. We actually have partners on our team, financial advisors, estate planning, business attorneys, that if you don't have one that you're working with already, we can refer quality ones to you. That is the workshop part. So those are some of the key areas that we talk about and we work through in the Freedom Mastery program. Again, I am your business partner in that journey. Just to share a little bit about Freedom Mastery, the framework is in those three sections: the vision, align the business to the vision, and then protect everything. The way that we can work together is we have those three phases, and we can work together in three ways. Because we teach time freedom, we understand that you are busy. And we want to make sure that we're not asking you to step out of your business to have a 2 hour Zoom call with us where we can teach you something that we have already recorded. So we have recorded many of the lessons that we work through in the intensive framework so that you can watch that lesson in particular order, because again, we're building a house here. We're building the foundation and working through it in order. So you can do that and then come to a call with me twice a month. And so you can do this framework at your own speed. Life happens. You might want to take a vacation. I don't want you to necessarily have to be working on your vacation. So this is where, for self-guided, for super busy, or if that works for you, of where there's worksheets, there is actual guided experiences that you're going to go through. So it's not just a talking, it's not like an online course. It is literally the same information that I would share on a Zoom. You just get to do it on your own timeline. There's a hybrid approach where it is the same framework and you can do the lesson on your own time and then bring it into a one-on-one call with me. And that is where we can get more specific on your business, your individual situation, and work through the same framework. And that usually is about a year because we go a little bit deeper on that. And then there is a handful that I work on a custom roadmap. So if you have a specific business or you really want a little bit more guidance and custom engagement, we limit that to 10 people a year because again, I teach time freedom and my time is limited. I obviously can't be working with 50 individuals and still have time freedom. So I limit that. I do have some space here this year. So those are the three ways that we can work together on this framework. You're going to get the Freedom and Finance Insight Report, and that is going to go through all of these different areas, vision and personal goals, business structure, and all of those listed here. That I have had say was a complete eye opener. I get so many individuals saying, this was so clear. It asked me questions I never thought of before. And now I know exactly where my profit is leaking or exactly where my value is not showing up and exactly where to focus on in your business. So make sure that you do that Freedom and Finance Insight Report. Be honest with yourself because you could score it really high, but then you're not getting the value. You're going to get the health and value assessment, which is what your business is worth. This will compare exactly where you're at today and the answers that you give. Again, be honest with the health questions. It's a shorter version of the audit. So do the audit first, this one first, the Freedom and Finance Insight Report, and then do this one because this one has more of summary questions. At least then you've thought about it. This is going to compare where your business is today with others in your industry, in your region, and at the same revenue size as you. So if you're at 4.5 million, it's not going to compare you to someone who is at 400,000 or 40 million. It's going to compare your business and with other businesses in your industry or in your region and about the same size as you, and show you what your value is estimated at. Now, this is not a formal valuation, but it is compared to actual sales that have completed for decades. Again, so this is real data that it's comparing you to. It's your input that the more realistic and the more honest you are with those questions, the more accurate it'll be. This report will give you the best in class, so those who are performing at the top tier, the average, and you. And so you'll see where you fit on that spectrum. You also have an opportunity to have a one-on-one strategy call with me. So you can either QR code this or book a time with me with the link that I'm sharing. So that is everything that we have wanted to share through the Freedom Mastery Framework. It is to help you scale profitably, work less, have more freedom in your life, and really build something successful that you're proud of, that you leave a legacy, both financially and impact wise. And that is what we are all about at Business Wealth Advisory. So we would love to talk to you and learn a little bit more about your business and see how we can get you the ideal life and the business aligned so that you too have all the time and money in the world. Thank you.